Hello and welcome to another Thrive Tribe Introduces. And today I'm delighted to be here with Helen Elliot from Wildleaf Wellness, who is a journey practitioner, coach, and Reiki practitioner too. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here.
Good, pleased to have you here with us as well. So the first part of that title was journey practitioner. So for the people that don't know, can you just explain a little bit more about that, please?
Yes. So how I got here. So Wildleaf Wellness for me grew out of something really personal. I spent over 20 years in UK defence. 17 of those was as a logistics officer in the Air Force, and then a further 8 years as a supply chain ops manager in the civil service. And I worked in defence equipment and support. It very similar. It just meant as a civilian, I could choose the color of my own tights. And I worked with really incredible people. I made friends for life. I had some amazing adventures and I achieved a lot. I really, I really thought at the time that I thrived in high pressure environments. There was lots of demands for data analysis, performance measures, smart goals, contingency plans, and more contingency plans. And I thought this was me. This is what I loved. And I also chased external markers of success. I wanted the house, the car, the salary, the pension. It- And I also wanted the level of rank or the grade. There was a real drive in me for that. Um, and on the outside, things probably looked good. But on the inside, I never felt like I quite fitted in. I often felt as though I wasn't enough, but the truth is, Mark, I didn't even know what enough was. I ticked all the boxes that I was asked to do, that I felt I should do, but there's always a part of me that was missing. And the truth is, I wore a lot of maths and I just didn't know it. And things got really tough for me when I had my daughter. I went through really quite severe postnatal depression. She was beautiful. I knew instantly I loved her and, would hold her and do everything that a mum should, but I couldn't connect with her. It was a really horrible time. And depression stayed with me for 3 to 4 years. It came with anxiety. It came with I was just surviving until bedtime, day after day after day. And I I was working full time in the military at that point. My partner was also in the Air Force, so he was often away, deployed, and we planned for me to be a solo parent, and any support that he could then provide was a bonus. And though we survived, but I I felt lonely. I felt alone. I was scared, and at times it really made me feel I was utterly defeated. And it was a really tough time. And something about that time made me reach back to my younger self, back to my teenage years. And I'd always had a natural curiosity for spirituality, for energy healing. And I ended up back at an energy healing workshop with a man called Malcolm Southwood. He was brilliant. And his words of wisdom that, he kind of shared with us then are still with me now. And while I was there, I met a lady who was a journey practitioner, and she introduced me to the journey and the principles of it. Now, at this time, I was still on antidepressants, I was still on anxiety medication, and I was still surviving until bedtime. And when she offered a journey process or a journey session to me, I was like, well, I've kind of tried everything else and I don't really know what else to do. And so I turned up at her house and we had a journey session and wow, fundamentally changed my life. I went on to do some of the journey seminars, the training courses. And over the period of about 6 to 9 months going through those, I kind of realized some home truths about myself. It helped me to release some real emotional blocks that I didn't realize were there. And it it made me realize that whilst my mind was super powerful, super clever, super strong as such, it kind of my body held the answer. And when I was able to reconnect with my body through this approach, it it, it transformed everything. And so that's when I kind of thought, this is what I want to do. I just didn't know when the right time would be. And so I was able to come off my medication. But really, more importantly, it wasn't about that. I could pick my daughter up and I connected with her emotionally for the first time in about 3, 4 years. Um, I can't tell you how grateful I am for that because until it was there, I didn't realize I knew I was missing something, and it was that. And she's beautiful to this day. I love her with all my heart. And I can love her now with all of my heart. And so I kind of carried on. I made the decision to leave the Air Force. I didn't want to deploy anymore, and I moved sideways into the civil service. And after a few years, I didn't realize at the time, but I was still chasing that those markers of success. I was still wanting the money. I was still wanting the position. I was still wanting the responsibility and the promotion. And I was offered it. I was offered to be the supply chain lead for the Poseidon fleet. So a bunch of aircraft up at RAF Lossiemouth, and they were just coming into service. So it was quite a punchy job. It was high profile. It was very complex. It had multi-layered support solutions. It had not enough people. I worked with utterly brilliant, and it came with the problems that I really wanted to solve. And I'd worked 20 years to get this type of job, and Mark, when I got there, I didn't want it. Um, and it was a real, oh, okay, what do I do? Woohoo. And at around the same time, I started entering the perimenopause, and all of the all of the signs and symptoms of that really completely played out. The anxiety came back. Um, I lost all of my coping strategies all of overnight, and I literally, emotionally and physically, I hit the floor. I burned out, and it was another significantly tough point in my life. Um, and I had a quite a significant period of time off. I slept a hell of a lot. But I also managed to unwind myself. I managed to untangle myself. And I realized that what I'd been doing all of this time was striving for something. It was feeding my ego. It wasn't feeding my soul. Um, and so I was like, oh, if I don't do this, who am I? What am I? Oh. And it was a really very vulnerable and a very emotional time for me. And I started to reflect on, well, what did I enjoy? What wasn't necessarily feeding my ego? Where did I really feel most alive? And I'd realized it was when I was working with people. It was the people that mattered. I'd had roles as a coach, as a leadership instructor. I'd been a boss. I'd I'd had the privilege to work alongside the most amazing of people, and people with real what's the way to put it? It's dealing with people, and I was a welfare officer. And so I was working with people who had quite complex PTSD, who at times were having suicidal thoughts, and people who were living with the messiness of being human, and life situations, and being able to support them from a perspective. At that point, it was from a work perspective, kind of figure out how to bring back what they needed together for them. And it was the people that made it really meaningful for me. And so after my time off work, I came back in and went, I don't want to do this. And I'd agreed with Ian that I would take a sabbatical. So I'd take a year off. And I didn't know what would happen precisely during that time, but I knew I wanted to go back to the journey. I'd already started. It had been so fundamentally effective, good, transforming for me back when I suffering with a postnatal depression. I was like, I'm coming back. And so I did, but this time I signed up to be the practitioner because I kind of by this time know that I wanted to bring the coaching, the mentoring, the working with people together. and the healing elements of the journey and the principles of that somehow. So that's how Wildlife Wellness was born. I just didn't know what it would look like at the point.
That's really fascinating. And I say it's one of those things, isn't it? We all have peak or highs and lows during our lifetime. It is very much how we deal with them at that moment in time. And some people go to some real dark parts of their lives. And I say your story sounds, very emotional and very raw. But just in terms of
Yes.
how you've used, that those depths and you found yourself through being a journey practitioner, it just sounds absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. So in terms of wildlife wellness, what's your mission for what you've created?
That's more simple. So I believe everyone deserves to feel free, to feel confident, and truly at home within themselves. It's that feeling comfortable in your own skin, feeling. And when people really connect with who they truly are, beneath the masks, beneath the surface level stuff that's here, connect with who they truly are, they get an unmistakable light from within, and it kind of shows up as sparkly diamond eyes. And I really feel that I want to help support people get those sparkly diamond eyes, either more sparkly or get that sparkle back. And kind of help support them to do that and create lasting change from the inside out. Um, just honest, open, and intuitive. Yeah,
No, I really like that. I just think that sounds a fantastic mission to have as you go forward and you help people. So to go hand in hand with the mission, what's your vision?
oh, the start. So, no, in all seriousness, I want to build something that's more than a service. So, wildlife wellness, it's a feel. Um, and I want to be able to create space, a space or space for people where they can come home to themselves. At the moment, that's one-to-one work. But in the future, how can we turn this into group programs? How can we turn this into retreat days? How can we hold space for that deep healing? Um, and so that people can really come, be with themselves and grow. Work out what their life's purpose is, whatever that is, and however that's going to fold out, but live it. Um, it's what I would love.
Again, yeah, really eloquent. I like that. And I suppose hand in hand with the mission and the vision it is that fact that people, as you mentioned before about the skin that people are in, and from my point of view, we work with a lot of people who potentially have like things like imposter syndrome, where they're doing something that they feel as though they're not worthy, and to have the journey to take them and to show them, exactly that they are worthy, and things that have happened in their lives that maybe makes them feel that way now. I think is really, really good. And so I definitely see, progressing from the one-to-one sessions and providing a community and a place where people can meet other people with like-minded individuals who really want to take themselves forward.
Yeah, the body knows. When we just step beyond the mind and the analysis and the logic and the talking, the body really already knows. And so just connecting with that alone and just coming back into into yourself and trusting in that is a huge thing. And it's so immensely powerful, but elegant at the same time. It really is. And I kind of can say that quite confidently because it's my own direct experience through having come through all of that. And I do journey work weekly, fortnightly, more or less constantly now. It's part of my life.
Definitely. And holding my hands up here, we've had a session together. Uh,
Yes.
for the 2 hours that we had the session, really, really powerful. I say, I won't divulge what was in it because you might talk about some of the things earlier, obviously not with me, but just as a general
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, I'll let you talk more about it. Yeah, it definitely opened up to my eyes to something that I'd never considered before. So, yes.
Yeah. And it's that space is sacred. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So for others who might be interested in coming on a journey sessions with you, what benefits would you say it provides for individuals that you work with?
Oh, the benefits. It's it's really wide reaching. Um, so we work with people, or I work with people at an emotional level. Sometimes people come to me and they're exploring a real issue that's here, present in their life. Sometimes people come because there's a feeling that something's not quite right, just don't know, and there's a curiosity to explore. Others come for either there's been traumatic events in their life, or there has been um, again that imposter syndrome, those limiting beliefs that we hold, some of which we're consciously aware of, and others that we're really not. And it's about connecting people with their body and their body's wisdom so that we just release, clear, heal that emotional root cause. And when you do that, a way of describing is the trigger that might have been there, that might have caused you to behave or react or respond in a certain way, it falls away. That external event will still happen in your life, but you lose the hook to it because it just falls away. And that could be in a number of different areas, but it's immensely powerful and it's really, really freeing when it does happen.
Definitely. Um, for me, obviously, from my journey session with you, it brought up things that I probably haven't thought about for years, but the process is the process, and it's such a wonderful thing to be guided on. And I say it may bring me think about things that
Yeah.
I haven't even considered as part of my journey, through life, to being a 50-year-old with family and kids. But yeah, so again, yeah, just a very, very special experience.
And it's beautiful to work this way because each session is different. So the approach is very much through a guided introspection, but it's very much a self-inquiry. So it's very intuitive, and what comes up in a session comes up, and you never really truly know what that's going to be. So that's where the intuitive side of it comes in. And quite often, and again, one of the biggest things that I get fed back through either testimonials, just asking people at this stage for feedback, is that, well, I came in with this. So this could be the need to drink wine on a Friday night, or it could be I always tend to respond in this way. So there's something that's surface level here. And when we go through the guided introspection and that self-inquiry, and the body kind of brings up, kind of shows us, we work towards the emotional root cause. That's over here. And logically or analytically, there's more, you can't actually pull those together in any way. And quite often we can't. It just is. And so it's that, trust the body, what we think we might either have told ourselves or thought or felt that, oh, it's because of this. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's, my own experience here was a real, an anecdote. I'm trying to pull the word anecdote together of something that happened as a child. And it was like, what? And it was just like, okay. But clearing the emotional root cause here, the response that I was running up here and how it showed up in my life just fell away. Um, and then actually, as time goes by, I just lose the connection completely. And that's where the emotional freedom comes in. It really does.
And I think that's so important to say. You mentioned childhood, and it reminded me back to my childhood. And there's a lot of people out there that potentially don't know. And so I don't think I did until I did the process with you. And as I say, I'm lucky enough to have had the opportunity. But and as you mentioned, obviously your childhood as well, and the things that's followed on from that. And you might not see any related lines between them, but once you do the journey and your body speaks, which, as I say, was a massive eye opener for me. You realise that inside the brain, which is a wonderful tool, it's a
Absolutely
wonderful thing.
necessarily.
Yeah, most definitely. But obviously, the brain harbours things that potentially you hear a lot of people say, don't you, if something, in their life happens, you tend to push it out of the way and get rid. But I think the journey process showed me, and obviously and you as well, in terms of what you've been through and what you introed the podcast with, it's still there. Yeah, so it's although it's pushed to the back, it still needs dealing with, and it still needs talking about, as it were, so we can move forward.
And we can do that in a really elegantly safe and compassionate and depending on the level of what people have experienced in a disassociated way as well. So this isn't necessarily about reliving what has happened before. It's looking at it from a different and feeling it from a different perspective. But that's safe. One of the biggest lessons that I learned along the way, really through working this way, was I've lost fear of feeling fear. I still have fear. It shows up. I was feeling a little bit fearful before this came up this afternoon. Um, but I realized through working this way that I'd avoided my emotions, not necessarily consciously at that point. I just wasn't even aware of it at that point. This is hindsight and reflection coming in, but I was afraid to feel. I had a fear of feeling fear, and I would do anything to avoid it. I'd eat. I've been the emotional eater, stuff everything down. I would drink. I would fill my life up so full. Um, by doing, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do the other, and my experience anyway. And it was a quote from Kevin, Kevin Billett, who's the co-founder of the Journey, and he's married to Brandon Bays, who's the founder of the Journey. And this is her life's work. And for 30 years, they've been developing this and living it. But I always remember him saying, if you stay in the heart of the deepest emotion, no matter how strong or how negative you perceive that to be, fundamentally changes your life, changes the way you perceive yourself, changes the way you perceive others, it changes the way you make decisions, and it fundamentally changes your life. And when I heard that, and when I stopped running and just allowed myself to sit and be with whatever that it was that was coming up in that moment, and I never knew, I never know, I came out the other side. It was okay. There's, parts of me that just needed a bit of attention, a bit of compassion, some love, and it gave me the confidence and the freedom to really truly start explore what was really here. No judgment. Fear would come, fear would go. Um, and it was fundamentally the one of those moments in life that you kind of always remember and go, oh, yeah, I had a fear of fear itself.
And that's funny. It is that aha moment, isn't it? Which is something that I got from the session as well. So, for those that haven't experienced this before, what can somebody expect from their first session with you?
When I begin to work with somebody says, "Hi, Helen, I'm interested. Can we?" I always suggest that we have a discovery call, half an hour. It's completely free and it's absolutely not a sales pitch because it's a chance us both to be open, honest, and just start to have that conversation about what's coming up, what's here. Sometimes there's something very obvious, something very present. Other times there's not. And it's just me saying, well, this is, what you can expect. This is how I would work. No pressure at this point. And it's an opportunity to see how we would fit, how we would work together, and how that feels. And then I would give somebody the time and space to say, back to me. Um, see how this resonates, see how it lands with you. Some people have said, yeah, absolutely. Please, can I book in here and now? And we have done. And others have gone away, thought about it, and come back sometimes a day later, other times a couple of weeks later. But it always starts with that 30 minutes chat, that discovery call, I guess.
And I say it's like anything in life, isn't it? It's like, for business owners out there who might, choose their accountant wisely. even friends, friendships. We choose those. As we go through our life, and I say we're careful about if you've got children, who your children hang out with. So yeah, I think I really love that idea about that 30 minutes just to see if there's a fit and just to start to talk. And as I say, what I do like about it, I know it's not it's not, as you say, it's not a sales thing. It's literally just seeing the first part of that relationship, isn't it? And that's so important. You get to know somebody, whatever walk of life and whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And it might be that somebody likes the sound or the journey side of it is fascinating. It might be that I'm not the right fit for them. Um, and so I would say, well, here's a list of other practitioners, for example. And I know when I've had conversations with people, I know you can't do that. And I'm like, well, absolutely I can, because if it's that side of the work that's really keen for people, they're just not sure about me because we might not connect in energetically or however that is. It's well, there's more out there. And I just would like to be open and transparent about that, I guess.
I love that. Thank you very much. And if they do progress onto further sessions with you, what does a typical session look and feel like?
Okay, so I said at the beginning I wasn't sure how what wildlife wellness would look like, and what I would offer. And over the last 4 or 5 months, I've been putting that together. So there's three ways in which we could work together. The first two, first one is a gentle inquiry. So this is an hour-long session. It's it's ideal for people who are just beginning to explore what's coming up and what might be beneath the surface. If we're starting to get curious but not quite sure how to do it yet. Um, if there's a light touch approach, people might not be ready for the deep inquiry, which is my next session. And it's an ideal starting point to try to support people to start connecting with their bodies and their emotions in a safe and in a compassionate way. And it's also where we can bring in coaching once the emotional root causes are free, they're gone, and you're in a place to start really making some changes in your life. It's where the coaching can come in. Um, so we can use that session in a number of different ways. But I like to think of it, and I like it to become a start point. Then the next option is the what I call the deep inquiry. So this is what you and I experienced. This is journey work. Really, it's around 2.5 hours. Especially when you're working this way for the first few times. The more work you do, it we kind of progress more quickly. If that's the right way to say more quickly, quicker. So these are the guided introspections. This is the self-inquiry, and it's starting to, it's kind of just with the attentive releasing emotional root causes of either something that's been stuck, something's blocked, um, repurposing limiting beliefs, bringing them up, clearing them, and it's really starts to really change. That's when, as I mentioned before, when people feel triggers and they just start to fall away. This is where that starts to happen. And it's really lovely. It's kind of the core and it's the heart of what I offer. And then the third way of working with me is if you're ready to commit to longer term growth, personal transformation, work with me for a 6 or 12 month program. These are all completely bespoke and will be a mix of everything. There's no set pattern to this because I'm meeting you where you are at this point. But we start to open and we start to do some of the deeper work and we start to explore we call it ego, or your personality blueprint. So these are the patterns that were formed pretty early on in your life. And most of the time they're unconscious to us, but they shape how you show up in the world. They shape the way you respond to certain things. And when you start to understand yourself in this way and start clearing in this way, it's where the magic happens. It really is. And the more open we are here, the more really, I guess, though. the more exposed you're willing to be and vulnerable to yourself, then it's when you get those lasting light bulb moments, okay, yep. And this is where the real transformation can happen because it's not just insight at this point. This is where the integration happens. Um, and regardless of which session is right for you, what you choose, it's all guided by you. It's all guided by the person I'm working with at that point. So I will hold the space. There is no fixed process, but it's hopefully a safe space where we can explore and just be curious about what's here and what's needed.
I like that. I like that. I like the fact there's different ways to get involved. And as you say, it's not, the process can be, short or it can be long, depending on, what the sessions bring up and how much exploratory investigation is needed. So it's very much in the hands of the individual that comes to you, to
Yeah.
start the process.
And so to kind of put that um, into some context, I worked the gentle inquiries. I worked with a case study client for 2 sessions, and it was on a phobia that they had of spiders, and they were starting to get. They reacted in such a way that there was a real sense of shame coming in because my children are now picking up on my responses, and they are now scared because they've lived in a household and grown up where I am so scared of them, and there was a real. I'm ready for this to stop because I don't want my children to be impacted. And we worked with 2 sessions, gentle inquiry based. And in those sessions, just cleared the phobia that they had of spiders. And at the end of it, she said, there was a spider on her hand that she picked up and just put out the window and it had gone. And she was so pleased, proud of herself because it takes courage. So that was what we were able to do in, 2 2 hour sessions. And then working with people at the deeper inquiry, journey style, really helping people who may have had trauma in the past just start putting boundaries into their lives that were lacking beforehand, and just being able to put these boundaries in place made a huge difference to their day-to-day life and how they related to themselves as well. So it can, sometimes only 1 or 2 sessions are needed. Other times, work together with people for a longer period of time. Right? It's all is possible, I guess.
No, that's good. And I tell what I like about the services that you offer is the fact that, wellness and mindset and things have definitely become a lot more prominent in the time that we live in. When I was at school, it was very much batted away.
Yeah,
Over the
yeah,
years, when I've grown up and watched probably the American shows and things, not everybody, but quite a few people talk about their emotions and their problems, and I'm glad now that finally, that's come over into the UK, and it's more the norm, and I would recommend anyone who's, doesn't, as you say, it doesn't have to be trauma. It could be something as daft as something that they want to give up, smoking, drinking, spiders, it could be anything at all, fear of flying. And it's just having, using somebody like yourself and the journey method and just being open to the process. I speak about that, the business coaching side. It is very much a process of having that open mind to delve into yourself and just see what the body and what the mind is thinking. So yeah, I think it's a really an amazing process to go to. So one that I have been through with you, and no matter what you think when you start, by the end of the sessions that you have, it becomes something that probably you just weren't expecting. So yes, it was a
yeah.
real eye
The
opener.
body knows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and also a pleasure as well.
yeah. Be open to surprises and trust the body.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. And I say something I hadn't thought about previously until the process with you. And I say that's the magical thing about it in my eyes. It was from what I was looking for, or what was found. I suppose not looking for, because it's from my point of view, didn't necessarily think there was anything there. But yeah, the process and the journey and with your help. yeah, it certainly got me thinking and got my body and my mind thinking too. So I'd recommend it for anyone. It's a wonderful, wonderful place.
Thank you.
Finally, before I let you go, all the links will be below the podcast in terms of Helen's socials and
Got
how to
those. Yeah.
find there. So finally, my one little last question, as you said, you are at the not at the beginning, but you are within your first 12 months of offering this service far and wide to help. So for people wanting to set up their own business, what advice do you give them from the position that you are in?
Give yourself permission to follow your heart. That feeling when it's right here, it's right. You know, and I know from my own experience that the second and subsequent thoughts will be my logical, analytical mind kicking in. But if it feels right here, there's an expression that we use in the journey: follow the breadcrumbs. And if the breadcrumb feels right, follow it. Um, and just allow that path to unfold. No, but we have this moment here, the present moment. No one knows what the future holds. We can think we do, we can plan to, we can strive for it, but just here. And if it feels right here, it's right now. Go for it.
No, I really like that. That's really good because most people's um, most people's businesses are born out of a passion for something, and as you say, you can plan as much as you like, but as you say, life takes us on unexpected twists and turns as we go through,
Yeah.
personally and business. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. I've loved a plan. I've always loved to. I think it's part of my. We talked earlier about that personality blueprint and the ego. Planning is part of me. Part of me. Probably why I did so well in I always have a contingency plan. Um, some of that is just falling away. Some real useful skills that will set me up, that will help me thrive from a business perspective. Coupled with that, just let it be. I went away recently on a retreat and I heard the most wonderful piece of advice, and I'm not sure if I can recall it absolutely. It was, if you're striving, it's ego. If it's easy, it will be. Um, and I guess that's where it's that it feels right. Follow that next breadcrumb. It's kind of bringing that into it. And that was just again, you put these things as you go through life, and it's one of those. Yeah, no, I'll keep that one.
Yeah. Helen, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here.